Hey guys, let's talk about Christina Calayca. Christina Calayca was born on December 19th, 1986. She was a young Filipino-Canadian woman who disappeared from Rainbow Falls Provincial Park in Ontario in 2007. As of 2022, her whereabouts and the circumstances surrounding her disappearance remain unknown. Christina was born to parents Elizabeth Rutledge and Mario Calayca, who divorced when she was 1 year old. A Filipino-Canadian, Christina's mother had immigrated to Canada in 1980 from Mindanao in the Philippines. Christina had never been to the Philippines, though her mother planned to someday travel there with her. She had one sibling, a younger brother, Michael Rutledge, who was 15 years old at the time of her disappearance. Christina was raised as a devout Catholic and, according to her mother, had begun praying at the age of 1. In the summer of 2007, Christina was living in the Cabbagetown neighborhood of Toronto and working 9-hour days at a summer camp hosted by St. Bernadette's Daycare, adjacent to Darcy McGee Catholic School. Prior to her disappearance, Christina attended George Brown College and graduated with a certificate in early childhood education in 2006. Christina was passing along half her salary to her mother, allowing her to drop several side jobs to focus on her career as a self-employed financial advisor. The family cared for 2 cats, Crystal and Oreo, the latter having given birth shortly before Christina's disappearance. But in a case of serendipity, Oreo disappeared from their Toronto home on the same day Christina went missing and never returned, leaving behind her kittens, which died soon after. Investigators believe Christina was not in a romantic relationship in August 2007. Statements from her family have described Calayca as a hard-working and natural leader, with ambitions of performing missionary work in the Philippines and going on a family vacation to Panama before attending Teachers College at York University. Christina held a leadership position in a church-affiliated youth group, Youth for Christ, and was responsible for organizing one of its largest conferences. She had also contributed a significant number of volunteer hours to an affiliated youth ministry. Christina has also been noted as having very poor spatial awareness, sense of direction, and sense of balance. Prior to her disappearance, she had been part of a hiking group, which became lost on the Seton hiking trail near Oshawa, and only emerged from the bush after wandering aimlessly for some time. Family members have noted that Christina had also had a number of phobias, including a fear of spiders and rodents, but had experienced fasting and was not a picky eater, traits that her mother believed would allow her to survive in the wilderness. She had also suffered an inflamed callus years prior when she stepped on a needle by accident and did not have it removed immediately, allowing it to become embedded in her foot and leaving a lasting injury which made running or standing for long periods of time painful. As a result of her injury, Christina generally kept in shape by playing volleyball and would only occasionally try jogging. At the time of her disappearance, Christina weighed between 125 and 130 pounds and stood 5 feet 2 inches tall. She had brown eyes and wavy shoulder-length black hair with orange streaks in her bangs. Her skin tone has been described as having a dark East Asian complexion, and investigators noted that she was in good health but poor physical condition at the time she went missing. Prior to the 2007 civic holiday, Christina had intended to participate in a youth conference taking place in Montreal, but found the cost of the trip would be too expensive. Rather than attend the conference, Christina and 3 friends, her cousin, Faith Costello, age 20, and 2 friends with Youth for Christ, Edward Eddie Meek, age 20, and Joe J.B. Benedict, age 19, made plans to camp at Rainbow Falls Provincial Park in northwestern Ontario over the long weekend. The Provincial Park covers an area of about 575 hectares and is located on Highway 17 between the towns of Schreiber and Rossport. 2 camping areas exist within the park. The main White Sand Lake campground, located less than a kilometer from the park gates, and the Rossport campground, located 3 kilometers to the west along the Trans-Canada Highway. Every campsite comes equipped with a metal-grilled fire pit, but all other amenities, including showers, are provided at a central comfort station. Most of the hiking trails in the area are short, generally measuring around 3 kilometers, with the exception of the 53-kilometer Cask Isle Trail, which passes through the park and stretches from Rossport to Terrace Bay. The park has been described by investigators as, quote, one of the most rugged, unquote, areas in the province, as outside of its established hiking trails, the area is covered in thick bush and cliffs up to 240 meters high. None of the 4 participants in the trip were experienced campers, and none had ever been as far north as Thunder Bay. While they had put enough planning into the trip for Christina to let work colleagues know where she was going, she didn't tell her mother their exact destination. The decision on where to spend their long weekend was made by typing the keyword falls into an online search engine and selecting the third result. At around noon on Sunday, August 5, 2007, Christina and the rest of her group arrived at Rainbow Falls Provincial Park after driving about 14 to 15 hours from Toronto in a green Honda CR-V which belonged to Christina's mother. The group had left Toronto the day before at around 10 in the morning, stopping at Sault Ste. Marie, Naze Provincial Park, and Schreiber along the way. They had also been delayed by running out of fuel outside Wawa. Although they had reserved campsite Lot 72 in the White Sand Lake campground, the group relocated to Lot 88 as it was positioned in a more private area along the lake than Lot 72, which was on the main road running through the campground. The park was busy with about 3/4 of its 97 campsites occupied by visitors, most of whom were locals from nearby communities. Christina and her friends spent the rest of the afternoon setting up and relaxing at the campsite before laying down to nap for half an hour at about 6 or 7:30 p.m. The alarm, which was supposed to wake the group, failed to do so, and they remained sleeping till about 10:30. After waking, they lit a campfire and spent the next several hours crowded around and grilling over it. The group finished almost all of their food and consumed several alcoholic beverages, though according to Mig, none of them drank enough to become intoxicated. The last known photograph of Christina was taken just after midnight at 12:08 a.m. on Monday, August 6th. The photo features her, Mig, and Benedict tending to a frying pan over the fire and was taken by Castulo. The group finally doused the flame at around 3:30 a.m. and went to bed at around 4 a.m., at which time Christina joked that the group should go swimming before noting that it was too dark to do so. At around 6:30 a.m., 8 minutes before dawn, Christina asked Mig to accompany her to the comfort station, and according to Mig, he and Christina decided to go jogging on the return trip. Accounts differ as to whether or not the pair decided to take different paths immediately or if they had tried to run together until Christina, unable to keep up with Mig, instead decided to take an alternative route. The two split up at an intersection near the park entrance and just south of the comfort station, with Mig following the road towards Highway 17, and Christina opting for a different road which led to the Rainbow Falls, the cascading waterfalls which lend their name to the provincial park. This is the last confirmed sighting of Christina. When last seen by Mig, Christina was wearing a striped maroon and purple shirt, alternatively described as a long-sleeved or a t-shirt, a blue hoodie, size 36 black pants, and white running shoes. Earlier photos of Christina indicate she had also brought a yellow Lucky in Love t-shirt, gray hoodie, and large sunglasses on the trip. Mig later recounted that Christina's mood at the time appeared upbeat, which was considered normal for her. Schreiber resident Paul Gauthier later told police that he may have seen Christina the morning she disappeared. According to Gauthier, he had been camping at the Rossport section of the campgrounds roughly 3 kilometers from the lot where she and her friends had stayed the night. Gauthier was drinking coffee outside his RV at around 9 a.m. when he spotted an unidentified Asian woman run off the highway and through the campground. Police questioned Gauthier multiple times about the sighting, but to date have not confirmed if the person he saw was Christina. After splitting up with Christina, Edward Mig followed the road toward Highway 17 with the intention of reaching the Rossport campground. He only got as far as a roadside picnic area where he carved FCJE, the first initials of all 4 members of the group, into a rock before turning back. About an hour after he and Christina set out jogging, Mig returned to the campsite and began searching for an axe to whittle down some oversized logs, but was unable to find one. Joe Benedict and Faith Castillo woke around 9:30 a.m. At first the group was not concerned that Christina had yet to rejoin them, and Castillo suggested her cousin was likely taking a walk through the forest to clear her mind. As they waited for her to return, Benedict showered at the comfort station and stopped by one of the park beaches to check for Christina, while Costello and Meg prepared breakfast. When Christina had still not returned by 11 a.m., her friends began looking for her. Benedict and Meg drove along the road to the falls and then searched the Lake Superior Trail and Rainbow Falls Trail, two divergent forest trails she may have jogged down. Although a number of other people were present on the trails, the two men did not ask them for help. Around 1:45 p.m., the group left a note for Christina at the campground in case she returned while they were out searching, and intended to drive to Rossport where one of the hiking trails ends. While inquiring about trail maps at the park gatehouse, they informed park staff that Christina was missing. After advising the group to report the situation to the Ontario Provincial Police, park personnel began making phone calls as well as searching local trails and beaches for Christina. Her friends officially reported her missing at around 2 p.m., 7.5 hours after she was last sighted, and her mother, Elizabeth Rutledge, was informed of the situation around 6 p.m. Under the command of OPP Sergeant Eric Luoto, the OPP Northwest Region Emergency Response Team took responsibility for the first search for Christina, establishing a command post in the park near White Sand Lake. The search would last a total of 17 days, one of the longest in the region's history, and see the deployment of about 100 police officers, firefighters, divers, and specialists unaffiliated with the police, though for the first 4 days only about 30 of these personnel were involved. Searchers used GPS, underwater side-scanning radar, infrared cameras, and 4 canine units in the search, as well as 2 fixed-wing airplanes, a float plane, 3 helicopters, and marine vehicles. Pilots from the Civil Air Search and Rescue Association also participated in the first 2 weeks of the search, sending at least 1 aircraft each day to help look for signs of Christina. For the duration of the search, most statements to the media were delivered by OPP Regional Spokesperson Sergeant Deb Tooley. The weather at Rainbow Falls on August 6 was favorable, ranging between a low of 15 degrees Celsius and a high of 20 degrees Celsius, and the fog, which usually covers Lake Superior, had cleared. Conditions briefly worsened on Tuesday, August 7th, when a hard rainstorm hit the area, but temperatures rose again and the area experienced an unseasonably warm few weeks while the search was ongoing. The rain did have a lasting side effect on the search, causing a significant amount of leaves to fall from the canopy and cover the ground. The difficult terrain was a serious challenge for searchers, resulting in 3 injuries: a dog handler who experienced a sprained ankle, another handler with a twisted knee, and a rescue worker who suffered facial lacerations while attempting to rappel down a cliff. A search dog was also lost in the forest during the search. For safety reasons, no searches were performed at night. Canine units were deployed early on in the search, but by the time they arrived on the scene, nearly a full day had passed since Christina had last been spotted, and they were unable to pick up her scent. The OPP sent investigators to survey the Rainbow Falls Trail and Cask Isle Trail, splitting officers into teams of 3 to search the main path of each trail as well as the area just off the path on either side. Acting on the assumption that Christina was alive but lost, they covered the entirety of the 53-kilometer Cask Isle Trail over the course of several days, frequently calling out her name. The OPP also deployed hasty teams to search the area around where Christina was last spotted, concentrating their efforts along natural and anthropogenic corridors off the trail, such as rivers or electrical lines which a person may follow when lost. Investigators determined their search area based on a standard lost hiker behavioral profile, using a statistical method to determine that she would likely be found inside an 8-kilometer radius from the place where she was last seen, as is the case in about 90% of situations where people go missing in woodlands. This tactic was undetermined by the difficult terrain in the area, the possible sighting in Rossport, and a flawed understanding of Christina's behavioral profile. While some items of interest were recovered during these searches, none have been officially linked to Christina. One team which searched around the Rainbow Falls recovered a pair of socks from a deep pool of water in the Hewitson River, sometimes called White Sand River, at the base of the falls, as well as a footprint in a mossy area nearby. According to investigators, the socks were likely too large to fit Christina, and attempts to test them for DNA have been inconclusive. While the footprint matched Christina's shoe size, without a preserved tread pattern, it was impossible to determine if it was created by one of her running shoes. Nonetheless, a Thunder Bay identification officer was brought in on the investigation to create a plaster cast of the print to further forensic study. Another unit located a site where a broken branch and candy wrapper suggested a person had rested, but DNA recovered from the wrapper was tested at the Molecular World Laboratory in Thunder Bay and was found to not match Christina's genetic profile. Air units began using thermal imagery to look for Christina on the fourth day of the search, while aircraft without infrared equipment engaged in hour-long flights outside the area being searched by the hasty teams on the ground. From the air, searchers noted some areas and scavenging birds, including turkey, vultures, and crows, as well as one site with a lean-to. Ground searches of these locations turned up no signs of Christina. Some police resources involved in the search were diverted after the body of a Sault Ste. Marie man was found in a tent south of Wawa on Friday, August 10th. But by Monday, August 12th, the number of officers involved in the search had increased to about 70. Officers were again diverted to another missing person investigation near Nipigon on Wednesday, August 15th, but this was soon determined to be a false alarm. Missing persons posters were distributed in nearby communities, including Shriver, in the first few days of the search. Although asked not to participate in the search themselves, Christina's family camped out around nearby Thunder Bay for the duration of the search effort, with Elizabeth Rutledge arriving the day after her daughter was reported missing. OPP Constable Keith Jones met the family when they arrived in the area and put them in touch with Raul Escarp, a Catholic priest and fellow Filipino-Canadian who performed special masses for the family several times during the search. As media interest in the situation grew, OPP spokespeople denied that public scrutiny played any role in keeping the search active. Mike King, the mayor of Terrace Bay, and Pat Hullinan, a town councilor in Shriver, organized a volunteer search team which scoured the area the weekend after Christina went missing. About 100 to 200 residents from local communities, including Shriver's former mayor Don MacArthur, participated in a grid search organized by Tracy Anderson, the fire chief in Terrace Bay. According to Hullinan, the volunteer force also included a good mixture of experienced searchers. The first search was Saturday, August 11th, which lasted for 8 hours and covered the area between the Provincial Parks East Beach and Highway 17, starting at the Hewitson River and heading east towards Shriver. Another day of searching followed on Sunday, August 12th, this time involving 50 to 80 volunteers, members of Christina's family who had been previously barred from participating in the investigation, and Christina's friends Joe Benedict and Edward Mig. Volunteers returned to the park again on Monday, August 13th, to continue looking for Christina, though in reduced numbers as many had to return to work. The OPP's underwater search unit used sonar to investigate local bodies of water, including a deep pool of water at the base of Rainbow Falls where evidence was recovered, which has never been conclusively linked to Christina. As part of their search, marine searchers engaged in the process of sledding, whereby 2 divers in a sled-like watercraft were pulled across the water by an OPP boat, allowing them to look directly down into the clear sections of White Sand Lake. Amid frustration with the lack of results, Christina's father, Mario Calayca, first addressed the media on August 13th and announced he would bring 7 other relatives to the search area to support the investigation, though he and 4 relatives left the area to return to Toronto after surveying the area from a police helicopter on August 16th. Christina's family gradually became less confident that she would be found, though even on August 17th, 11 days into the search, OPP Regional Commander Mike Armstrong continued to reassure them and the media that her chances of survival were high, as favorable conditions in the park made dehydration and hypothermia unlikely. On Wednesday, August 22nd, Christina's Uncle Ken West told journalists, quote, "They've used K-9 units, they've used planes, they've used submarines, they've used all sorts of different ways in order to find Christina, and nothing, absolutely nothing works. There's no clue at all," unquote. Police initiated a final concentrated grid search to find Christina on Tuesday, August 21st, now telling media they believed Christina was a non-responsive person and would not be able to reply if she heard searchers calling her name. By this point, most other police resources, including aircraft and canine units, have been called off the search, leaving only 20 to 25 officers to perform the grid search and divers to continue investigating nearby bodies of water. On the advice of OPP Sergeant Don Webster, the Provincial Search and Rescue Coordinator, the search for Christina was called off on Thursday, August 23rd. The day after the search for Christina was called off, Rutledge told journalists that she would continue to search for her daughter herself. At the time, the family believed Christina had been abducted and was no longer in Rainbow Falls Provincial Park. After the initial police search was called off, the investigation into Christina's disappearance stalled. Later attempts by investigators to canvass the area failed to turn up any evidence which could explain her disappearance. Investigators questioned Joe Benedict, Faith Castillo, and Edward Migg 3 times after the initial search, but these interrogations did not produce any new information. None of Christina's friends who accompanied her to Rainbow Falls Provincial Park have ever been considered suspects in her disappearance. In the months after she went missing, police told Christina's family that they were following up on 60 leads related to her case, including interviews with other campers who left the park the weekend of the disappearance. Christina's family held a vigil which was attended by over 600 people at the Prince of Peace Catholic Church in Scarborough on August 15th, and another at the Rainbow Falls on September 8th. Her employer, St. Bernadette's Daycare, also hosted a vigil for her on August 15th. A mass in her honor was held at Darcy McGee Catholic School to commemorate the 1-year anniversary of her disappearance on August 6, 2008. Christina's mother set up a website and Facebook group led by her aunt, Karen Kagwikla, to raise awareness about the case in January 2008. The family also participated in a number of unofficial searches, the first of which occurred on September 7, 2007. In March 2009, A Day Goes By, a tribute to Christina, was released as a collaboration between musical artists in Toronto's Filipino community, with proceeds of the 12-track album going towards funding another search of Rainbow Falls. Christina's mother, Elizabeth Rutledge, financed multiple private searches of the area around Rainbow Falls Provincial Park, but through the Find Christina Calayca group and withdrawing money from her daughter's trust fund. The first fundraiser organized by the family occurred on December 10, 2007, and solicited donations through the sale of a CD entitled Missing You. On May 28, 2008, with a new search planned for the next month, the family organized a silent auction to raise additional funds. Another fundraiser occurred on August 10, 2008. The first privately funded search, a collaborative effort with the OPP, cost her mother $44,000 of the $48,000 the family had fundraised to that point, and involved 22 volunteer searchers working over 5 days. OPP Sergeant Eric Luoto again led the police search effort, hoping to take advantage of areas which were too thick with vegetation to properly search in summer 2007, but had thinned out over the winter. A team of 5 rescue workers trained in rappelling was also deployed to look for evidence around the area's cliffs. They had originally been scheduled to search the area on November 19, 2007, but were unable to work in poor weather conditions. After police concluded their search, the family and volunteer force were allowed to conduct their own search, led by Halifax-based canine handler Doug Teef, who provided his team of cadaver dogs for the expedition. The Ottawa-based canine group, Ottawa Valley Search and Rescue Dog Association, and 8 U.S.-based search dog teams also participated in the search. This phase of the search was organized to help from the Minnesota-based John Francis Foundation and began on June 13, 2008. The volunteer force called police to report strange behavior from the search dogs in a particular area, and while this behavior did not suggest human remains had been found, it was only observed in the vicinity of a large hole. Forensic technicians with the OPP investigated the hole and the area around it on Wednesday, June 18th, but found no evidence to explain the dog's behavior or to link the site to Christina's disappearance. On October 30th, 2008, the Bring Christina Home fundraising gala was put on in Richmond Hill to raise awareness for Christina's case. The event was hosted by news anchor Francis de Souza and featured professional boxer George Chavallo and missing person advocate David Francis as speakers. The event also featured singer Stephanie Martin and Canadian Idol contestant Andrew Austin as its musical acts. To promote the event, the Find Christina Calayca group was interviewed by journalist Charles Spider Jones for his CFRB 1010 radio show on October 5th. A second privately funded search took place in November 2008 and involved a team of 6 cadaver dogs, which were brought to investigate the area where Christina was last spotted. According to search manager Jeff Hossey, all 6 dogs detected the scent of human remains at the bottom of the Houston River, but the flow and depth of the river made any further investigation into this lead difficult. By March 2009, much of the family and community support for Rutledge's search efforts had faded. Sales of A Day Goes By, a tribute to Christina's CD, only generated $610 of the $20,000 figure that a third expedition was estimated to cost. In March 2009, an interview with reporters from the Toronto Star, her mother admitted that she was prepared to give up the search after 20 months without results, partly owing to an incident in November 2008 where she and several family members nearly collided with a moose on Highway 17 while searching for her daughter. A third and final search funded by the family began on September 19, 2009, in what searchers called Perfect Conditions. The search was again led by Jeff Hossey and intended to focus on the area along the Houston River where the search dogs had detected the possible presence of remains in November 2008. In addition to family members, 21 volunteers with the Search, Rescue, and Recovery Resources of Minnesota participated in the search. Searchers were split into 8 units and sent to investigate places of interest, including some areas surveyed the day before the main search began. Although searchers claimed to have found more possible evidence, an OPP search on October 14, 2009 was unable to find any new leads. By this time, Rutledge sold her house and moved into a 2-bedroom apartment with her son to finance the investigation. But when her third privately funded search failed to turn up any new evidence, she told journalists she was faced with the choice of using what money she had left to either continue funding the investigation or pay for her son's university education. No privately funded searches have taken place since 2009. Human remains discovered in the Thunder Bay area in October 2010 were investigated as possibly belonging to Christina, but were later determined to be unrelated. In a 2021 interview, retired OPP Officer Sergeant Don Webster told the Elliott Lake Today online publication that, over the course of the investigation, he had assembled a large binder detailing all the available information about Christina's case and had met with the family to discuss the investigation. Webster revealed that some information about the case has not been made public as it is part of an active investigation. Christina Calayca's disappearance is still under investigation by the Nipigon Division of the Ontario Provincial Police, and as of 2022 is still being treated as a missing person case. The Government of Ontario has issued a $50,000 reward for information leading to her whereabouts. Christina Calayca's current whereabouts remains unknown, as do the circumstances surrounding her disappearance. At the time Christina was reported missing, the official stance of the Ontario Provincial Police was that they suspected she had been attacked by a bear. A consultant from the Ministry of Northern Development, Mines, Natural Resources, and Forestry was brought in to help investigate this theory, but Stephen Herrero of the University of Calgary later cast doubt on this theory. Herrero, who authored an authoritative book on bear attacks, suggested that it was not impossible but highly unlikely that a bear had attacked Christina, as no ripped clothing, blood, or drag marks were found during the initial search, and a bear would not have traveled any further than 600 feet with a kill. It is not believed that the area's wild wolves would have attacked Christina, as wolf attacks are extremely rare. One explanation suggests that Christina was a victim of misadventure. OPP investigators have alleged that Christina's lack of experience hiking in the wilderness likely led to her becoming lost and disoriented in the dense undergrowth of the forest. However, Christina's mother has questioned why her daughter would have wandered off the forest's well-marked trails given her inexperience, and how she would have managed to remain undetected for the 2.5 weeks that police spent searching the area for her. Investigators also allege that they found no signs of the kind of disturbance usually found after a person creates a path through dense vegetation. Prior to Christina, only one other person had gone missing while hiking the park's trails and had been located within 9 hours. While investigating Christina's disappearance, OPP Sergeant Eric Luoto claimed search and rescue teams in northwestern Ontario are called in to locate 30 to 40 lost people each year, and in more than 95% of the cases, are able to find the person within 24 hours. A number of outliers had occurred in recent years, however. On May 16, 2006, over a year before Christina disappeared, Hamilton-based tree planter Haju Iroaga, went missing in an area about 70 kilometers north of White River, Ontario. His case also remains unsolved. But like Christina, early speculation suggested he may have been attacked by an animal. Before this, the July 4th, 2005 disappearance of Jeffrey Turtle on the Pikangikum First Nation had also triggered a 17-day search by the OPP, which failed to locate Turtle or determine why he had disappeared. Christina's family has suggested it is unlikely that she intentionally disappeared in order to sever ties with her community and family. Christina was reported to have a strong relationship with her family and had been responsible for organizing her mother's 50th birthday party on July 28, 2007, just 9 days before her disappearance. It has been noted on the podcast, The True Crime Files, that such a plot would have involved at least one other person who would have not come forward in the years since the disappearance in order for the case to remain unsolved. Rumors that allege Christina was due to enter in an arranged marriage and was unhappy as a result of this and limited career options are not backed by any testimony offered by investigators, the family, or others close to in her life. Foul play has been suggested as a possible cause of Christina's disappearance, but the OPP do not suspect Christina was the victim of foul play.